Hi everyone, Norman Kochnick here from, as you know, Eyes on Cricket with Norman Kochnick. I've got my South Sydney Rabbitohs hat on tonight, and Chris Vernon's here with a darkened, still gloomy. I think he's probably still a bit gloomy after the Test series, but it's getting better. The reality is that we have a lot to talk about. Don't we, Chris? We've got somebody called the Chris Fan Club. Who is this?
I don't know. I'm honoured and slightly. I can only apologise to the person who is. I mean, apart from looks, there isn't much Brad Pitt about me, so I do apologise.
Sorry, did you say you look like Brad Pitt?
Well, I mean, he's a good-looking fella as well, isn't he?
Yeah, but hang on. I'm just trying to work out who actually said that. I didn't say it. Pretty didn't say it. Apart didn't say it.
They wouldn't.
Adam certainly didn't say. David Gravely didn't say it. So I'm not exactly sure who you're referring to that's actually mentioned, except for yourself. That's rather interesting. Anyway, normally you allow someone else to say that first, don't you, Chris?
Well, that's what I mean. You know, you just go off what you get told, don't you?
So who's been telling you that? All right. Okay. So we have a lot to talk about, people. Even though we've finished the Test series, we had a great chat last night with David Graveney and Adam Hollyoak. This 10:30 time slot is very packed. This is, in fact, an Aussie and a POM talking all things India for episode 10. Episode 10. So it's quite a monumental achievement in itself. We have obviously England and India are still percolating. I've just been given some visuals of the Indian training, and Hardik Pandya looks like he's been given a hell of a workout, and so is Rahul. So I'm pretty much expecting those players to be a part of this squad, as in actively. I don't think Kohli's going away. So someone said Chris is better looking than Pip. Who is, okay, the Chris Fan Club? Can they stand up and tell, is this your mother?
It's not my mother. I don't think my mum would ever say that about me. So, I'm equally as mystified as you. So
right, we'll get to the bottom of that. It certainly isn't music harmony, I can assure you that.
I think you're just jealous that there's no Norman K fan club.
I don't need a fan club as such.
Neither do I, but it's nice to have one.
All right, as long as you think so. Okay, so it could be Nilakshi Sharma. Maybe she's Music Harmony reckons it's Chris himself.
It's definitely not me. Trust me, I wouldn't do that.
If we see Chris typing away, well, there's a good chance it could be him. He can type away under all sorts of. Probably got 3 computers there. Okay, now, first and foremost, we have a World Test Championship moving from Lords to the Ageas Bowl or the Rose Bowl down in Southampton. I've been to it. It's got the Shane Warne stand. It's rather small members pavilion, I would argue. Very boutique, a lovely viewing ground.
Yeah.
We'll talk about that first because I think we need. I had a lot of people ask me what's my take on the pitch. As far as I was aware, when I was at that ground some time ago, it was a bowling pitch, bowler friendly. Would that be a fair argument?
It just depends when you're there. Really, it typically would be the Test matches we've played. I think we played Sri Lanka there a few years ago, and I think Sangakkara got a double 100. Typically, it would be one of the flatter wickets, depending on when it is and the summer we have. I think it's in June, so it's sort of early-ish part of the season, first half of the season. So it just depends on the weather really and what sort of wicket they want to prepare. There's going to be lots of cricket played this year around the country, so those wickets might have a little bit more grass on them. But I think it'll be a decent batting wicket for sure, as most English wickets typically are. I know there's been a lot of talk about green tops and stuff, but typically they only seem about on a green for the first couple of sessions, and they tend to flatten out for a few days. So I'd imagine that they'll be good to bowl on initially, but be quite a good wicket to score some runs on.
But hang on. My first question was, it's quite often bowler friendly though.
Yeah, but as I said, that's a lot of first day wickets are as well. But I think the Test matches we've played at the Ageas Bowl have been quite high scoring ones. As I said, Sangakkara got a big 100 there, so it'll be a good
while ago. I mean, who did I see? I saw it was not a Test match. I saw England versus I think the West Indies. I remember seeing Tino Best storm out of a dressing room. That's my memory.
I don't think that would have been at the Rose Bowl. We would have probably only played 2 or 3 Test matches.
No, it wasn't a Test match. It was some of the form of cricket. I'm not sure whether it was an ODI or a T20, but Tino Best was involved in that game. So that's why I remember. Actually, no, I think it was a Test match. I'm pretty sure it was a Test match. Anyway, but yeah, the ground it's a nice ground. The hotel apparently is not in the actual stadium, but nearby. Is that right?
Yeah, I think if you look at it, I think if from one end you can see it, it's a big, like you can see it from the ground. If depending on where the commentary box is, you can see it as a thing across. If that makes sense, it's attached to one of the stands, I think.
Yeah, but it's a good point. I think it's Ismooks is saying is that a small ground deserving of such a big Test championship final? Very good question. Very good question.
It's purely because of the player secure bubbles. There's a hotel. I think it's the Ageas Bowl or Old Trafford. You can sit on your balcony in your hotel room and watch the cricket. You're literally facing onto the ground, so it's set back. It's not like Lords or the Oval where it's in London. You know, you drive down. I played at the Ageas Bowl. You drive down a drive, and it's sort of a secluded, separate. So you can have that bubble where no one can come in and can come out. So it's purely there because of those reasons. It's a much easier bubble to be able to keep players safe away from the COVID situation.
But is it going to favour England or India more? Is the question.
Well, I mean, if England were playing, it might favour them, but it might.
Sorry. New Zealand or England, who will it favour more?
I don't think it will favour either. I think both have got decent bowling attacks, and I think any English conditions are going to typically suit New Zealand's batting lineup, just because that's what they're used to facing in the home conditions. So it will be probably a slightly flatter wicket than Lords, so that probably helps India a little bit. But it's the Test match in England typically come down to the weather.
I actually think this is, if there's going to be a slight benefit out of this, it's actually swung somewhat in India's favour rather than New Zealand's favour. I would argue that at Lords it would have been probably slightly more in New Zealand's favour. So actually it probably is slightly in India's favour. I would agree with that. So if they're saying New Zealand are favourites to the final, I wouldn't say that at all. I would say that India have a very good chance of doing well if the pitch is a lot flatter. The New Zealand team, the game is actually on June 18th. 18th. That was confirmed by Debashis today because he's already planning to go. So am I. I'm planning to go.
Are you planning on coming over, are you?
Yep, as long as we get our visas sorted out, yes. Are they
and your vaccines?
Yeah, we'll get all that done. That's April, May, June. We've still got 3 months to go. Do you think that okay, will there be a crowd?
Well, I doubt it. I would imagine that the reason they've moved it from Lords is because they're predicting no crowd. I think COVID restrictions, the final ones are being lifted on the 21st of June or something, where they're intending on coming out of it. So I would assume
21st of June, which is after the date.
Yeah, I think that's when all social distancing measures are being sort of relieved. So if there is a crowd, it will be very minimal. But I would probably anticipate because of the way they've moved the pitch, the ground, that there won't be a crowd.
Is it? I don't know whether you can be so conclusive at this stage. Okay, I'm just saying that is it mandatorily decided now, or will they wait up until the last day and make the decision?
On the crowd?
Yes.
Well, social distancing in this country means that in June means that I can go and socialise with more than 2 households in the same place at one time or indoors. So if that's what the rules are, then there's no way they're going to let 20,000 people into a stadium. I don't know what the rules will be. I mean, we'll probably find out in due course, but I would imagine that I would assume that expect it to be behind closed doors. And if anything changes, then that's a good thing. But I would imagine it'll probably be behind closed doors to a large portion of it anyway.
Well, why I'm asking is because obviously Indian fans, those that can travel, those that can afford to travel, in terms of, I don't mean necessarily financial, I'm talking about to get permissions, etc., will need to know pretty damn soon whether it's worth their while making their effort to go there.
I very much doubt, and you'd have to check, obviously, government restrictions, but you're going to have to do 10 or 14 days quarantine in a hotel by yourself in this country now before you can go. So I don't see many Indian fans being able to come over and watch the Test match unless you do the quarantine. And it's the same for you. It's the same for Debassis. You know, that I think it's a 10 or 14 day mandatory isolation period on arrival to the country. So, but you know,
is that a payment situation that you make? Like in Australia, we've got to pay through. Australia control that quarantine. Yeah. They decide. In Australia, they decide what hotel you go to, and you pay an amount of money to the government. Is that what's going to happen in England?
I'm not entirely sure. I mean, I don't know what the plan, what the process is, but I know that you'll probably have to fund it yourself to be able to do that. So I don't see Indian fans being able to come over and watch the Test. I would imagine it's going to be behind closed doors.
Okay. All right. Yeah. It's either way. It's going to be quite a significant match. Again, that's June 18th.
There's more chance. If I was them, I'd be waiting. Maybe give it another month or 6 weeks and try and come over for the England series. There might be more chance of having crowds in then.
Right. So let's look at. Okay. So that's one thing that we've got to talk about. Secondly, the IPL. The dates that were April 9th
April 5th
to May 30th.
Yep. Exciting. Looking forward to it.
Yeah. So we've got the World Test Championship June 18th.
Yeah.
We've got the IPL April 9th to May 30th. In between the May 30th date and the June 18th date, there'll be players that will be going to play, that is Indians, going to play in Sri Lanka for some sort of hybrid ODI T20 series in there. Now, that makes me think that some of the Test players, maybe Pujara, Kohli, Bumrah, may not then go to that Sri Lankan series because that'll be in fact, it'll be virtually impossible. There's a 2-week quarantine. There's no way they can do that. In fact,
there's obviously not a quarantine in Sri Lanka, is there? Because England came to Sri Lanka from India, and 4 days later they're playing a Test match. So there's not clearly traveling to India to Sri Lanka. There's no quarantine.
But you think about it for a minute. If there's any cricket in Sri Lanka in between that India's involved with, they will have a window of May 30th, well, basically the next day, which is the 31st of May. Is there a 31st of May? I think there is. And June 3rd to play, because if they've got a 14-day quarantine in England before the Test match on June 18th, that would virtually mean that no one in the touring side of Sri Lanka will be able to play in the Test match, or vice versa. So you're going to see a very, very well, I hate to use the word second string, but a very specific range of players that'll be available for the T20 series.
It just depends. I don't know, because obviously the football at the moment, there's a lot of sides going in and out to play Champions League football. I think that there's an exclusion on for high level or professional sport. So Liverpool, Man City, and everyone going in the Champions League are going to Hungary or going to France or going to Italy to play their games. They haven't had to quarantine going or coming back. So I think for high level sport, elite sport, there is some kind of different rules, but I don't know. I'm not an expert.
Well, anyway, regardless of how lenient these 2 weeks are, the reality is that it looks as though the Indian team will be a very different team going to Sri Lanka.
Yeah, and I don't think that's a bad thing. It's a good chance to rest and rotate, isn't it? I know there's been a lot of talk on the rotation, but I see everyone doing it. Yeah, that would probably be a good chance to have a look at some of the second string guys and still probably win a test match in Sri Lanka anyway.
Well, there won't be a test match of the ODIs and T20s, but yeah, I would imagine that you'll find that the players going across will be very separate.
Yeah.
So we've got 5 T20s happening from March 13th.
Yeah.
Which is only a few days away. 13th, 15th, 17th, 19th. I think it's every second day. And 21st, if I'm not wrong. And then you got 3 ODIs in Pune. So the 5 T20s are in Ahmedabad, and then 3 ODIs in Pune. Then some go across to play Sri Lanka, and the others will go on to the World Test Championship, which then only a few weeks later will end up being a Test series, ODI and T20 series against England at home. So that rolls into a situation where they probably will be going back to get ready for the World Cup.
Yeah, is that in October, November, isn't it? The World is that right?
Yeah.
The World Test Championship.
Yeah, but I think the tour to England is 3 months, so it's June to July, August, September. They literally come back in September.
Yeah, and
then start playing the World Cup in October, November. It's quite an incredible lineup of time, isn't it?
Mm.
So Pandya is definitely playing in this. I think he's playing in the T20 series with Rahul. Looks pretty certain they're going to be putting him through the ringer.
Yeah, I mean, if you're going on form from the IPL, which is arguably the most, that and the Big Bash are probably the best 2 2020 competitions in terms of standard. You know, KL Rahul was leading run scorer in the IPL, so you'd be pretty daft not to, if you're picking on form or picking on, blokes who are in good form and know those pitches, and then KL Rahul has to play. You'd imagine him and Rohit at the top's a pretty formidable pairing, unless you go with Darwan as well. But they've got some high quality options that haven't they at the top of the order.
Shikhar Dhawan probably will get a Guernsey, I'd say, and so will Rahul, as you said, and Pandya. There's 3 inserts. Pujara won't probably be in the side. I would argue you would probably Agarwal will also get a Guernsey, so you may see also Gill out of the side as well.
And for the 2020s.
Yeah.
I don't know if Agarwal will get a gig, because they've got, if you're going top 3, are probably going to be maybe Rahul, Sharma and Darwan. You've got Kohli 4, Pant at 5, Hardik at 6, and maybe some other. Yeah, so you've got a pretty decent.
I think Agarwal probably. So yeah, Gil Pujara, and even Rahane may not be in that side as well.
I don't think Rahane and Pujara would ever be in a 2020 or one day setup anyway.
No, that's right. Okay. People are asking, what are you drinking? What are you?
It's just Coca-Cola. Nothing too. It's too early for a beer.
Just settle down, guys. Yeah. They're also talking about Aya playing or
Shirazia. And Surya Kumar Yadav as well. He's come into the squad. I think they'll use it as an opportunity. Maybe not the first couple of games, but certainly down the series, it's a good chance to look at some guys against arguably the best or the second best. India and England are probably the best 2 in the world at the moment in the white ball format. Good chance to look at some guys with the World Cup in mind. It's a good chance to test them out, see how they go against the best in the world, and be able to pick a squad for the World Cup based off that.
I'm just going to also, while we're talking, recruit the whole of my Indian audience to support the Rabbitohs, South Sydney Rabbitohs. You are now all unofficially the South Sydney Rabbitohs, red and green as the colours. The team plays the very first rugby league match on Thursday against Melbourne, in Melbourne, and I'm expecting you all to Google that game and Google the NRL, and I want you to start to help me support my South Sydney Rabbitohs. Okay? You have been all officially recruited as the fan base in India for the South Sydney Rabbitohs. So just be aware of that. South Sydney Rabbitohs, look them up. All right. So Sans calibre is Chris waiting for Pretty? Well, Pretty's not coming. Pretty is actually. We would love to have her on every show, but we've got to allow different people on. Like last night, I had David Graveney and Adam Hollyout now went fantastic. Like, those two have known each other for a long time. It was like almost like a marriage reunion for them, and they both were great. We'll have a special show on Thursday, which will be, albeit International Women's Day was on Monday, I'm calling it International Women's Week. We're going to feature a number of women on that show. I'll introduce it, and then I'll come off the show. Pretty will host it. We'll have Aparna Saini. We'll have hopefully other people like Kritika Nadu, Harini Rana. We'll even have Gargi Wonka, and we may have some of our. We might even have. I might bring Nalakshi Sharma onto that one. We might get her to come on. If you're listening, Nalakshi, you might get a Guernsey for that on Thursday. So yeah, that's the routine. So they'll be centering on that. We've been in contact with Monty Panesar in the Road Safety World Series, and we're trying to get a hold of him while he's over there, so he can perhaps broadcast from there. We'll wait and see whether it's possible. It may not be possible, but we'll try it. So yeah, there's going to be a lot more to come. Aparna Saini's YouTube page has gone 1,190 subscribers. So she's cracked the 1,000 mark, which is a bit of a moment. She's very happy, and I'm very happy too. So a question there from Nishant is: will Darwood Milan get a chance in this strong T20 side for England? Undoubtedly.
First name in the team sheet at the moment, I think, for England. Well, certainly batting at 3. I mean, he's proved every time he averages over 50, I think, in number 1 in the world. You'd be a fairly brave England side to leave out the number 1 rated batsman in the world in 2020 format, you know, especially when you've got Kohli, Smith, Stokes, Butler, Jason Roy, Owen Morgan, you know, all these guys, Rohit, you know, all these guys below him, you know, statistically, Darwood Milan is the best in the world at the moment in 2020 cricket. And every time he's had an opportunity to play for England in that format, he just seems to score runs. And I think he'll be looking forward to playing on some good quality, flat one-day wickets at Ahmedabad.
So, okay. So what batting line? Okay, we'll go off India first.
Mm-hmm.
Sharma and probably Rahul, I'm guessing. With Kohli will be at number 3 rather than 4. I think 3 for sure. That's the drum. Then you'll probably have who would go 4? Not Punt. It could well be
Shirasiya. Ishan Kishan maybe might come in. He's quite the hot topic at the moment. He's had a couple of good IPLs. I don't know whether Kohli will bat 4. I think they might look at Ishan to maybe bat 3. Or yeah, it's interesting. I know Kohli wants to get up the order, but they might see it as a lengthening. I think they'll go Rohit and Rahul. I don't think Dhawan will get a gig for that first game. I think those two will get the role. Say Kohli bats 3, then they'll bat maybe Shirasiya or Ishan Kishan 4, Ant 5, and then you've got Hardik 6. Or it depends how they want to structure the.
Well, they might put Agarwal in there somewhere too. Agarwal's a pretty good chance. Who would be what would be the bowling makeup then?
Oh, I don't know too much about where they're favouring their seamers anyway. But you've got Bhuvi Kumar's back in the setup. Chalal, Chalal's obviously in there, one of the best leg spinners in the IPL. You've got Shardul Thakur, Nat Duran. I mean, there's a lot of high quality, isn't there, for India, especially when you've got Axar Patel. Yeah, I'm sure he'll play. I think he might not have it quite so easy in this series. I would imagine the pitches will be a lot better to bat on and won't spin quite so much. And it's white ball cricket. It's a lot easier for favours batters anyway. And this is an England batting lineup that is going to be quite full of confidence, and they'll certainly take the attack to him a bit more than the Test side did.
All right. So that's pretty much the settled Indian side. England, obviously Owen Morgan will be the captain.
Yeah.
You'll have Milan. Who will be batting around? Who will they put around him?
You obviously got Jason Roy. Liam Livingston's come into the squad. He's had a pretty good big bash. I think I'm not sure if he got a gig in the IPL this year. You've got Johnny Bairstow, so I imagine it'll probably be Jason Roy and Johnny Bairstow to open.
Milan 3.
Owen Morgan 4. It depends what they want to do with Josh Butler. They might. I think in South Africa they opened the batting with Josh Butler, so I probably would say, to be honest, that because Bairstow batted at 4, I think, or 5 in South Africa, so you might see Butler and Roy open, Milan 3, maybe Bairstow 4, Morgan 5, Stokes 6, and then you've got the bowlers. It'd be probably Mo and Ali 7, Jofra Archer 8, Rashid 9, Mark Wood 10, and then one of the others, maybe Sam or Tom Curran, depending on how they want to structure the side. Really, they like Reece Topley as well.
I think Sam Curran's playing. I'm pretty sure Curran's playing. Why? Because he was interviewed yesterday, so that's usually a telltale sign of a player's inclusion. So is Anderson's not there? He's gone, has he?
Yeah, Anderson hasn't. I don't think Jimmy Anderson's played a game of white ball cricket for England for 6 or 7 years. It would have been a while.
Okay, so they've all gone home. They're on their way home.
Yeah, they've gone to put their feet up for a couple of months before the season starts. Keep fresh for India at the first test.
Right, so you mentioned who else? You mentioned Rashid. Who was the other bowler you mentioned? Mo and Ali. Now, is Mo and Ali in India? He went home.
Yeah, he's back. He's in the squad, as far as I'm aware. So yeah, I mean, him and Rashid have been two of the best sort of wicket-taking spinners in the world in the last 3 or 4 years. So hopefully they'll be able to continue the form in the series.
Okay, all right. So and for the ODIs there'll be further changes, but we'll get to that later. But that's probably Kohli's domain more now. So I think the strength of India for the ODIs will see them win that series 2-1.
I think it'll be very close. I don't think I can't really call it. England are world champions. Have probably set the benchmark in world one-day cricket. I'm pretty sure they won the last series they played in India as well. So it'll be very close. It's going to be tight. I can't call it. I certainly wouldn't put India winning or England winning. I think it could go either way, 2-1 either way. So.
But you're saying for the T20s, you're saying in England are.
I think it will be 3-2 and 2-1 either way. It could India could win both, England could win both, one could win each. I think they're two very, very fine sides, probably the best two in the world. India probably have the slight advantage just because it's at home, but I don't think England really be bothered about that. I think that they're high in confidence and a very, well accomplished team. So it's too close to call for me.
You were a bit more. I spoke to Adam and David. They were a bit more adamant that England will win the T20s, but
it's just too close. Yeah, I think that they're both very good sides. It's tough to call. As I said, if it was outside of India, I would say England were favourites all day long because I think that they're just the way they've gone about the business in the last 3 or 4 years with the World Cup and everything. They're pretty much unbeatable. But I think it'll be very close. I think it's going to be brilliant to watch and a brilliant series.
Well, they're playing at Ahmedabad for the 5 T20s, which will be interesting what sort of pitch they throw up. My God, how quickly they've got it. They must have really worked overtime on these pitches.
Oh, they've got quite a big square there, haven't they? So they'll be able to prepare. I would imagine that the T20s, you can play probably 2 on the same pitch, can't you? You don't have to have 5 brand new wickets, for a 2020 game. So
a bit hard. So then they're going to Pune, which is usually a flatter track for the ODIs, what I believe, not as spin friendly. So, okay, that's pretty settled. Now, all right. With injury clouds, are there any injury clouds that Jadeja's been training? Whether he plays, I don't think is he picked?
I haven't seen him. I haven't seen if he's back or not. So, they might just want to. They might probably not want to take a risk. Do they see him more as a one-day bowler than a 2020 bowler? Jadeja, typically, maybe.
Probably more of a one-day bowler.
Yeah, so maybe they'll just keep him fresh and keep him fit and give him a run out before the IPL.
Okay. With someone's mentioned Harold Larwood. I don't quite know what context Harold Larwood would be mentioned. Harold Larwood is dead. He's buried in Kensington, not very far from me here. English bowler that he was. He's lived in Australia for the last part of his life. I'm not sure how it was mentioned. Anyway, so I think Bumrah's unavailable.
Yeah.
Shami has not recovered as quickly from his arm injury as hoped. And
Yeah.
Jadeja looked like he was getting close, but maybe not close enough. So the unavailability of those three, certainly is an issue.
I think that they'll just want to see those guys want to get fit for the IPL, won't they? That's probably their headline of the year. And then the tour to England obviously is it's a busy year for the Indian cricketers as well. I mean, I'll be interested to see if they go about rotating their squad like England did. And England got a lot of stick for their rotation. But I think that other sides will do it as well, and it'll be interesting to see what the Indian fans and Indian public say about it after they made quite a big point of slating England for doing it. If their side starts doing it as well, so.
Do you think we'll see a resurgence of Kohli in this series?
I don't think there's been a resurgence of Kohli in that respect. He's still a quality player. I think that.
Oh no, but I mean, he has been rather quiet.
I think that the white ball games probably, especially the 2021, is something he can come in and sort of relax with and have that kind of laissez-faire kind of carefree attitude to it, and I think that's really important in 2020 cricket. So I think you'll see that, and the IPL is a good way of getting back into some form confidence-wise.
Yeah. So you expect him to play all?
Yeah, I mean, they might rest or rotate for one of them, but he's going to be in the mix, isn't he? He's going to want to play, so
if Kohli wasn't there for the 2020 format or the ODI, and obviously Rahane not playing, who would be captain?
I would imagine Rohit would captain, wouldn't he, in the one day side? I don't think Rahane plays a lot of, especially 2020. I mean, he might play in the one day stuff, but they seem to have got a lot of good guys there.
No, by no means was suggesting that Rahane would be captain. I'm saying, but who would? That's all.
I imagine Rohit would captain. He seems the obvious choice, isn't he? He's experienced. He's probably the best player they've got in that side. So apart from that, it's quite a young side, isn't it? You would say someone like Rishabh Pant is just too young, and he hasn't played a lot, so to chuck him the captaincy would be pretty daft. KL Rahul could come in as captain. So
Music Harmony's asking, look at the comments. Well, I am looking at the comments. I've been commenting on it. So what are you saying?
Music Harmony. Rahane doesn't play ODI and T20 anymore. I said that. Music Harmony.
Well, I don't know why we are. Look, Music Harmony, don't get cranky on your text. We can see. So Amit Srivastav wants me to say his name, but I have said your name before many times, and I'm not agreeing with you on one of your previous posts as well. So, all right. But it's a good test for both sides because obviously with the T20 World Cup coming up later this year, on Ahmedabad will almost certainly feature. In fact, I would argue that the final will be at Ahmedabad.
Yeah, you think so?
If it goes to plan, that'll mean that you'll have a situation where that's a great little test for them to play on. All right. So we've talked a bit about the T20s, about the team selections. We haven't gone into the ODIs just yet, but there's three of those, all within the month of March, over literally a 2-week period. Then they move straight into the IPL of April 9th to May 30th, which will be, in my early opinion, Delhi Capital's time in the sun. They go to Sri Lanka and then they go to England. It's Jesus packed, isn't it? That's really a huge, load on those players. And Bumrah's out for this series, thankfully for him, because he needed a break, regardless of weddings or not. They've come back from Australia, it's quite an incredible.
I didn't think you agreed with the rotation and break policy.
But it's not about rotation, it's about he is actually pooped.
But that's what rotation is. It's
not
just
necessarily. I mean, rotation, there are some players that are arbitrarily rotated, not necessarily only for injury reasons. I mean, an opening bowler who has worked his butt off is a different kettle of fish. There are some batters and some spinners that need rotation. That I don't agree with because their workloads would not be that severe. Like Moeen Ali, there's no sense in him being rotated. But he went on home on compassionate grounds, didn't he? He had other reasons. He had enough.
England are calling it rotation, but it's purely a rest thing. It's not they're just chopping and changing for the sake of it. Their policy is to rotate, to rest, and to keep players fresh. So
it's here to stay for this COVID period of time.
Yeah.
It is here to stay, and their squads are 30. Even Gargi, who was on the other night, you went on with her. She talked about she's playing domestic state cricket in India, and she travelled from north of Chennai, and they've got a squad of 25 plus, and they're only what you would call domestic side.
Yeah.
Which is very interesting. And I heard, did you hear what Ravi Shastri said? He said because of this fact of the larger squads, Washington Sundar got a Guernsey, Shardul Thakur got a Guernsey, Natarajan got a Guernsey. And they've unearthed great players. The same may well happen for England. Is there anyone that's in their greatest squad that you think may be a bolter for one of these matches?
Who, India or England?
England.
What do you mean a bolter?
Well, someone who would not normally have got a Guernsey if there was less players in the squad, that's in the squad now and may get a Guernsey.
I don't think so. I mean, I'm looking at the squad now in front of me, and Liam Livingstone or Chris Jordan, those guys have been in the squad before. There's no one there that I think it's different as a touring squad because you're probably taking a very similar sort of outfit as a squad anyway. You're still taking quite a big squad, and when you tour, typically you do anyway. When you're playing at home,
how many in the squad?
I don't. I'm not entirely. I mean, I can count, but it'll be probably 18, something like that.
I think it's more than that.
I guess when you're at home, normally for a home test match, you'd pick a squad of 12 or 13, and then you can just name a different 12 or 13 for the next test or the test after. Whereas, obviously, in the COVID bubble, you have to name a squad of 18 or something, just in case someone has to come in or come out. Hence why I think there's been a couple of additions or.
So you're saying there's no one that's coming out of left field that could be in this England side?
I don't think so. I think they've all would have played for England before. I don't think there's any surprise debuts or anything like that. So no, they'll all be confident. So guys, there aren't any names that you wouldn't have seen before. Probably Liam Livingstone's the only name that the Indian guys might not recognise too much. But apart from that, they're all well established. Would have played quite a bit of international cricket.
Okay. So England consider themselves to be the top 20 team, and that's what they would. Well, who is actually? Well, obviously now the rankings come out for the Test rankings, and India on top, followed by England. Well, no, India on top, followed by New Zealand, then Australia, and England are actually fourth. That's rather low, isn't it?
It's tricky, isn't it? Because. I think that England will. It comes down to conditions a lot. I expect England will probably beat India and New Zealand this summer at home. So the rankings will change. They're constantly changing, aren't they? I think gone are the days of Australia being number one for 4, 5, 6 years, wasn't it? That Australian side are at the top, whereas it seems to chop and change. I think England were number one within the last sort of year and a half. Australia have been there, India have been there, New Zealand have been there recently. So it's quite evident at the moment that there's probably, and I don't even consider New Zealand as part of the big, I think there's 3 main test sides in the world that play pretty much all the test cricket. Australia, England and India. New Zealand are obviously in the mix there, but they don't play anywhere near the same volume that the other guys do. So
why not?
Maybe it's just the TV rights. I don't know. It's a money thing. They just seem to not play the same numbers, and it's just a shame, isn't it?
Well, if they let's just say they win the World Test Championship, they have to command more respect in terms of positioning overall. You would think. Anyway, Pakistan, I think, were 5th, which is quite a good effort from them.
Yeah,
Pakistan always shocked me how well they go. Well, they beat South Africa, didn't they, at home? All right. So we've talked about the World Test Championship.
Sure.
We've talked a bit about the upcoming T20s and ODIs between England and India. What about the IPL?
Well, I mean, we've done our shows on the IPL, and
that was early on. Has there been any movements with that? There hasn't been, is there?
I think that I've followed a couple of guys on Twitter, and it seems that this Devdutt Padikkal is just a waterfall of runs at the moment. He's just scoring hundreds and hundreds for his state side. In the Ranjiv Trophy, I think it is, whichever trophy it is. And I said at the time I thought that he would be one to watch in the IPL, and I'm excited to see how he goes. He seems to be sort of flying up the ranks in terms of the batting and runs wise. So it'll be interesting to see how he goes. Yeah.
Cameron Green, who wasn't picked up by the IPL, has been scoring big runs in Australia. He scored a double century, scored huge hundreds. He's clearly, making up for what he didn't perform at the Test level. He's certainly not letting people forget about him in a hurry. Nathan Lyon's been doing okay domestically. I've got some video of Dave Warner doing okay. There's been a few movements, but they're not playing against anyone, are they? They're going nowhere at the moment, so they're staying, finishing off the Sheffield Shield, which has probably been a godsend because they're improving their Test cricket at home, considering there's some major Test matches toward the end of the year. It's good that they're getting some, further, state exposure. I think
that it's been a testament to England, really, that how they've prolonged Jimmy Anderson, Stuart Broad's, and other guys' career by getting them out of the white ball setup. They've basically kept them as Test cricket only, and Jimmy Anderson hasn't played a white ball game for years. Stuart Broad's very similar, and someone like Nathan Lyon or a Josh Hazlewood, someone like that, or a Pat Cummins might find that they do similar. They might stop playing one-day cricket in a few years' time and think that I just want to play Test cricket and keep my career as long as possible in that sense. So it's been
Pat Cummins is in that mode, yes. Josh Hazlewood's still playing IPL. Nathan Lyon rarely plays T20 and ODI cricket because he's just not deemed to be good enough and would love to play because he's probably played only 20 or 30 matches at most. So he's not being left out due to his age. He's just been left out because he's not good enough. So that's interesting. I think he would probably chomp at the bit to get a go if he had a chance, but he doesn't. All right, so, okay. It's hard to know what to concentrate on. When we've got the IPL, to me, that's going to take up a lot of time from April 9th to May 30th. That's a large period of time for all players. Good for those that are not going. There's some of the Test players that, perhaps don't normally get a Guernsey. They're going to have a nice old rest. But they're going to have to switch off that pretty quickly and go to Test cricket for June 18th. The more I think about it, the more I think India's going to struggle a bit. Why? Because they're going to have to travel. New Zealand are going to be there much earlier, aren't they?
Yeah.
I would assume.
And New Zealand have got 2 Test matches against England first.
That's a huge advantage.
As a warm-up. So, there's just a lot of cricket. Quite a lot of the New Zealand guys aren't playing in the IPL. A few are, but there's certainly less percentage than what the Indian side will be. So,
Ross Taylor, I think, is not going to the IPL as the other.
Kane Williamson, obviously some of the bowlers will, but India. It's going to be a good test. I can't really call it. I think it's going to be very close. I think that the weather will probably be the deciding factor. If it's overcast and swings around, then I would say that New Zealand are probably big favourites. If it flattens out a bit, like the Rose Bowl can be, it can be quite a flat wicket at times. Then I wouldn't put a draw past it at the Rose Bowl.
I'm putting a timeout. One of the guys, this so-called Kane Williamson, puts some gibberish on the thing. Okay.
It's the same for Jitin Galdini. He's copy and pasted that thing about 10 times, and then I'm getting Ray wanted to ask a question. It's tough to follow the questions when guys like this are copying and pasting 15, 20 times. So.
If we have people who are copying and pasting, or more importantly, just putting gibberish 10 times over, I'm not going to ban you, but we're not going to entertain any questions from you at all, if that's the way you're going to carry on. So be wary of that. Okay, if you make any stupid comments there, or if you make excessive, if you ask that question 50 times, I don't care how much you want us to see it, we're not going to entertain the question. So put it once, and we will try and see it. Okay.
Music harmony. Home advantage isn't a thing in T20s. India defeated England 2-1, New Zealand 5-0, and Australia 2-1 in their indens. I agree, music harmony, just because they want T20 sides and countries around the world just put out the flattest wicket they can because they want to see lots of runs being scored. So it just favours the batters. It's not, the white ball doesn't swing as much. Indian wickets won't spin because they want it to be flat for the crowds and for the TV and for the audience. So that's why home advantage is negated a bit, just because the wicket and the conditions aren't as don't favour the bowling sides. And if you look at home advantage around the world, it suits bowlers. It doesn't suit batters, does it? So the fact that they want flat decks, small grounds, big crowds, lots of sixes. That's why home advantage is less.
Oh, there's no doubt. But okay. Who has? I mean, New Zealand has to have an advantage because and this is in England, because they're going to be there earlier. You could even argue the conditions favour a New Zealand type play, because they are very English in the way they approach their grounds in New Zealand. It's going to be difficult for England and for India, but I think that adds to the spice of it, because that only means to me that India will rise to the occasion. It's going to be very, very exciting.
Yeah, absolutely. No, it's going to be a good spectacle to see for sure.
Yeah.
Music harmony. Therefore, the T20 series.
Kale Rahul, normally you've changed after 10 recent 10 games. No, I haven't. What do you mean I've changed?
He's still annoying and still thinks the Rabbitohs are the best team in the world. So it's more Western Force, isn't it? Isn't that the team?
Western Force play rugby union, not rugby league.
Oh, that's a proper Western rugby union's a proper sport, not like rugby league.
Who told you that? No, rugby league is the true.
Does Brendan Favola still play?
No, we're not talking about rugby union. This is not a rugby union channel. I'm sorry. This is going to be a cricket channel, but it will have rugby league smattered in there. So, guys, bone up on your rugby league. Okay.
Amit Shristav, if India win the World Test Championship against all odds, and I think India's number one, it's not against all odds for sure. It's, I would say, if there's it's a 5% favour to New Zealand. You know, it's probably 55-45 at the most. You know, India will probably go in as favourites. You know, I think the only way you can really say India would say that they're officially number one in that respect and achievement is if they beat England in English conditions. I think that's the same way as if England want to be number one, they would have to beat Australia and India in their own patch. Same way as if Australia want to be number one, they have to beat India and England and England. You know, it seems to be this is kind of the how it's defined. You know, forget rankings. If India want to say they're the best team in the world, you've got to beat everyone in their own conditions.
But hang on, I think when you win a final of a World Test Championship, you have a right to say you're the best in the world. I'm afraid it is meant to be. But
I guarantee now, if you ask Ravi Sastry what he'd rather win, they'd rather win the England series than win the World Test Championships, without doubt.
I'm not saying that, but when you look at the reality of this concept, we've got to give it a fair degree of acceptance, even though it's the first. And the issue is that it probably will have to be deemed that way. My concern is if, let's say, India win, does that mean the next World Test Championship is held in India?
No, the first two are definitely both at Lords or both in England for sure.
Is that right? Both the first two?
Yeah, my point being with number one is that it's like if they played Australia, you can't say you're number one in the world because you beat Australia and England. You know, you have to beat the home team in those conditions too. And I'm not saying India won't be number one. I'm just saying in their mind, I think to be completely and utterly, without doubt, without anyone being able to question, to beat England in England is the biggest challenge that India have. And that's the true mark. Same for England when we went over there in 2012. We'd beaten Australia in Australia the year before. And we knew we were probably the best side in the world, but we came and beat India in India. We knew, you know, that was the biggest achievement for that side is winning in conditions that are most alien to you. And for England, winning in India or Pakistan, you know, that's the benchmark of how you know how good a side is.
Yeah. Okay. I still think the Indian program is ridiculously overcooked.
Well, the same for everyone, isn't it? England are the same, Australia the same. You know,
Australia's not doing anything. They're not going anywhere. They're not going over the winter. Where are they going?
Yeah, true. But I guess it's just the way that it coincides with the English summer, isn't it?
Yeah, but I'm saying to you, Australia were meant to go to South Africa. They went to New Zealand, which was it was a short pit stop, and they lost that series anyway. But Australia's going nowhere, as far as I'm aware. They might have an unusual kind of like Afghanistan or someone coming over to play us mid-year, but it'll be one match. We've got a pretty dry spell actually up until the World Cup. I'm assuming we're going to play someone, I don't know offhand, prior to the World Cup, but it'll be pretty lean there for a while for Australia, I think.
Yeah. Carol, then why would you consider England as the best white ball side while you haven't defeated India? I I think that England and India are the best two white ball sides. I've probably said that a few times so far, and on the last show, England won the World Cup. England beat India in the World Cup. I think that England beat India in the last series or the two series ago we played in India. I might be wrong, but no, I agree. White ball cricket is different to Test cricket because home advantage isn't as big a factor just because the pitches are flatter, the grounds are smaller. White ball is much easier to play against. So,
Kane
yeah,
Williamson, I'm going to block you. Your last warning: if you do any more of those posts, you're blocked for good. Have your choice. Okay, stop it.
So yeah, in answer to Kerr's question, I think that they're both very similar sides, and I think that these series are going to be very close. I'm looking forward to seeing how good. I don't know what's the crowd situation going to be in Ahmedabad. Are they going to be allowed to have some more people in the stadium?
Well, there's no doubt they will. They just had a test match only a handful of days ago. Nothing's changed that I'm aware of for them not to have crowds there. So that looks like that's going to happen.
Mm-hmm.
Ray was appreciating our work. Thank you very much. Amit, so we're saying that Kane is abusing me in Hindi. Well, he's gone. If I see one more post which is wrong, he's going to be blocked for good.
Ray, just take one more question. Ray, you want us to answer your question? You've been sat there abusing me about Liverpool's form recently, so you need to just tread carefully. You want us to answer a question, and you're taking the mickey out of Liverpool. You know, I'm not. You've got to butter me up if you want questions answered. You can't be. It's like taking the mickey out of the Rabbitohs. You know, Norman's not going to want to answer too many questions. But Sam from the Rain. Hi, Chris. Can you take my question? What should be India 11 to defeat New Zealand? How do you combat bowl? I think that the 11s are going to be very similar because the bowling attacks are both very good. I think India will struggle more because New Zealand batters are used to playing in those conditions sort of week in, week out. I wouldn't be surprised if you see KL Rahul come in. I think that he has quite a good technique for playing in England potentially. I think he plays it quite late. He moves his feet well. He had a fairly good series over here last time in 2018. I wouldn't be surprised, and you're all going to disagree with me, Norman will as well. I think he'll start the series, but I wouldn't be surprised if Rohit Sharma ends up not playing 5 tests because I think that he's been found out.
5 T20s, you mean?
No, the test match series in England and against New Zealand. I think that technically he isn't as sound overseas, and you might find that someone like KL Rahul opens the batting with someone else in that series towards the end. But it'll be interesting to see. They've just got to find a technique, a way of playing the swinging ball, which typically means play it later, move feet more, and go from there. But you know, Bolton, Southey, and Wagner and Jameson are going to be a pretty formidable partnership if the wicket suits them.
So Josh Adam says, who are you supporting in the IPL? Supporting, I mean, I've always been a Kolkata Knight Riders fan, but I do think Delhi Capitals will probably win. Mumbai Indians will be there, as we always know, but I can't say it would take a lot for them to win it yet again. They could do it. Who knows?
I'm a RCB, but I'm going to follow the Kings 11, Punjab Kings this year as well, just because I like Chris Gale, and they've got some good players. I like all of it. I like watching all of it. I'll be doing my Dream 11 IPL, and I think our chat Norman will try and set up a fantasy league for viewers and listeners. And
well, that's your job, Chris. You've got a responsibility to be Mr. Fantasy League. So you've got some time leading up to April 9th, and we'll definitely
set up a league, and we'll just post the code or something in the community chat for people to join, and maybe we'll try and sort a prize out. I don't know how easy it will be. If someone wins, we can post off a cricket shirt or something, or we can.
Yeah, I'll definitely arrange for something, guys. Well, maybe something signed by some of the people that we've got as panelists, like a Monty Panesar or whomever we can get to do that. We'll get them to sign it. Okay, that's a very good idea. I like that a lot.
Ray PMB9, talk about Jameson. Is 2020 a waste of money? I mean, I haven't watched hardly any of the series in Australia recently. I know that he got waxed, didn't he?
It was dropped.
Yeah. Difficult to say. I mean, you can't in 2020 cricket, especially in New Zealand. You played at, is it Christchurch, Wellington, where it's at the Cape Tin, isn't it? It's the smallest. Yeah. It's a football ground or rugby ground. It's the tiniest little. It's like playing at Auckland. It's like a 50, 60 metre hit on a drop-in wicket that is flat, and he just gets panned. I mean, it's
Yeah, he didn't bowl. He was a bit expensive. He was very expensive.
You've got to give the guy slightly more chance. Ray, I think that I said when we did the auction special, I thought that was a lot of money. I thought that he would go for some money, but I never predicted that much. So it'll be interesting to see. Seamers, look at the successful seamers in India in the IPL. They tend to have lots of slow balls. They tend to have very good skills. Look at Jofra Archer. He's quick. He has good slow balls. He has good bouncer, good Yorkers. Whereas Jameson's strength so far has just been Test cricket, running in, hitting a length. So it'll be a big test for him. And I hope that he does well, because you never want to see these guys fail, do you? It's not. When no one's a malicious thing. Yeah, we want our team to win or anything, but it's never nice seeing a guy that's just earning a living and trying his best to really fail. So I hope he does well.
KL Rahul has asked a couple of times, which don't do that so many times, please. He asked about why you consider Joe Root in top 4 while he even can't get a place in the T20. Fair comment.
Yeah, but I mean, we're talking. I don't think anyone's ever said Joe Root's in the top 4 of one-day stuff. I mean, I think he averaged over 50 in one-day cricket. So he's certainly on stats-wise can put his name in the hat. England have just an embarrassment of riches really at the moment. Same with India's bowling in Test match and one-day stuff. England have got a lot of high-quality batting. Alex Hales, who's arguably one of the best in the world, doesn't even get a look in at the moment. James Vince had a brilliant big bash, not picked.
Well, he's chosen them in the Pakistan Super League.
No, that got cancelled. He would have, if England had picked him, he would have played for England. He's only gone there because he hasn't been picked for England, without a shadow of a doubt. There's not any chance in the world that James Vince has picked Pakistan over England. He went to Pakistan because he wasn't getting picked. So that's why. But those guys aren't even getting a sniff, and they were the best 2 players in the Big Bash.
So, yeah, okay. So we're clearly thinking you're not sure. You're not sitting on the fence between India and England for the T20 series. I'm saying England will win it.
I think it'll be 3-2 either way. I think it'll be close, and I think there'll be some good games. I think it'll be high, lots of runs scored, depending on the wicket. I mean, it might be a slower wicket. We don't know. But England have got all bases covered, and so have India. So I think it could be a really, really good series.
So we're planning on having a pre and post match for that, which will be quite.
That'll be fun for you.
Yeah, 3-4 in the morning, but that's okay. It's only not 5 days in a row. It'll be one day, the day off, so I can handle it. But we hope to have a lot more guests on there. Adams and David are coming back on. Simon's been busy with his fledglings cricket, hasn't
he? Yeah, he's a busy man, Mr. Willis. So
he's got a lot of his season started effectively, I think. Started. Yeah. But we'll have other people free up. Monty will be back because he'll have finished his road safety series. So there'll be a few more back, and I've got a few more new recruits coming in, so we'll be well and truly stocked. There are 5 top teams. Sebastian Gosh said there are 5 top teams, T20 teams, who are favourites to win the World Cup: Australia, England, India, West Indies, and New Zealand. Well, West Indies, it depends who they pick. If they're going to pick a few of the Pollards and the Gales, that will be interesting. With Nicholas Pooran and even Dwayne Bravo, and they'll be interesting. They can get their act together on the day.
I'm going to throw a left field one, and it won't cheer the Indian supporters up, but I think Pakistan have got a very decent side in 2020 cricket. You've got Shaheen Afridi, Rizwan, Babar Azam. I'm not saying they're going to win it, but in such a short format, where in a knockout competition, in a one-off game, everyone can beat everyone. Even South Africa have got a good side. That's the beauty of 2020 cricket, is that anyone can win anyone. All it takes is Chris Gale to face 30 balls, he'll get 100. That beats anyone, no matter how good your bowling attack is. So I'm looking forward to it. That's the beauty of 2020 cricket. It's a shorter, faster format, and anyone can beat anyone. But Pakistan, I wouldn't write off. I don't think they will win it, but they've certainly got enough quality there to maybe see to maybe do well. And there's lots of good guys in the Pakistan Super League that are coming through, and there's they've got a reasonable chance probably as the in the second sort of tier of favourites. I would imagine England and India are probably going to be the main favourites, and then Australia, Pakistan probably the next favourites, and then the West Indies will be in there with the rest.
Okay. All right. Is there anything we haven't covered that you want to talk about today? Do you want to talk about the top 11 or world 11 or?
Oh, we could do. Just Abhijit Rushwan, who is the best T20 batsman and T20 bowler in the world, I'm assuming. I think T20 batsman Rohit Sharma's got to be up there. He's had quite a couple of quiet IPLs though. He hasn't done as well as he would have wanted in the last couple of IPLs. David Malan I'm not saying he's the best, but statistically he's brilliant at the moment. And best 2020 bowler in the world, Jofra Archer's got to have the Guernsey for that one, Norman, hasn't
he? Yeah, he does. But his fitness is my only concern at the moment, how he's going in that regard. He has had a rather lean period the last few weeks, hasn't he, in terms of his form? Not form, his fitness. His form should always be there. Bumrah also would be up there when fit.
Yeah, without
doubt. But you know what?
Oh, and Rashid Khan.
Oh, he'd
without a doubt the best spinner. Without a doubt the best spinner. So. SMK,
I rather like some of those Sri Lankan spinners over there in the West Indies. They look pretty good too, but obviously not at that level. But except for Sandakan, I think you got hit too many times.
SMK quickly. He's asked a question about the pitch at the Rose Bowl. We've answered we've spoken a little bit about that at the start. SMK. Would Southampton favour New Zealand more than India, given the Southampton pitch seems to swing more than Lords? It just depends on the weather and the overhead conditions. If the sun's out for 2 weeks before, that wicket will be pretty flat and be good to score runs on. So, as I said, everyone talks about the wickets in England. It typically depends on the overhead conditions. If you can have day one of a Test match, like at Headingley in the Ashes. England were bowled out for 60 and then chased 380 on the last day. If it's cloudy and overcast and it swings, and if the sun comes out, the pitch flattens out. So that's the biggest say in England, really, what the overhead conditions doing as opposed to the pitch. So I hope that answers your question.
I think it's going to favour the move from Lords to the Rose Bowl, the Ageas Bowl, will favour India more than it will New Zealand. That's my initial appearance.
I'd potentially agree with that, yeah.
Because at the Lords, I think New Zealand have the best chance. And also, not forgetting New Zealand's experience, the final-like atmosphere there, not that, reasonably short time ago in their minds, they'll be in their minds quite heavily. They want to avenge for that. The ability, this is a Test match, not the same short-form format, but still. The IPL schedule, that's a very good question. Did you look? I think it's all COVID related, and unfortunately, that means that no team's got a home game. I find that a bit of a shock. I really do, because the whole idea of this is for the fans. If there's any fans going to be able to enter those grounds, they can't see the home side for the entire season. That's rather sad, I would argue. I like my Rabbitohs team. If they played away the whole season, I'd be quite disappointed at that too, given COVID or not. I find that one a little bit strange. I think they made a mistake there. I think it's a bit long as well. Long in terms of the fact that we've got a COVID situation. That length of time is a bit of a worry. I think that's my concern. So I don't think it's that good a schedule. And they keep throwing in the newer grounds. Like I think Ahmedabad, you'd argue, is going to be used a lot. And I understand that for the final. I don't know whether I get that throughout. They shouldn't forsake a home ground game to play at Ahmedabad. That's my thoughts. I don't think that's. You don't have to, just because the new standard doesn't mean you have to overuse it, and you're forsaking fans. Because has anyone got Ahmedabad as a home ground?
I don't know. It's in Gujarat, isn't it? So what is it? Chennai close to Gujarat? Was when Chennai went out of the IPL because of the match fixing? Did Gujarat Lions take over? Was it the similar?
Yeah, the Gujarat Lions are not in the moment, but they may be back next season, I think.
Yeah, I'm not sure.
Because there were two more teams coming in next season.
Yeah.
With Gujarat Lions. So the Rahul Kohli is a tremendous top three. If they fire, watch out.
Absolutely.
Pretty hard to beat. If they fire,
it's going to be good because you've got good bowling, good bowling, good batting on both sides, haven't you? If Jason Roy, Alex Hales, and Josh Buttler, Ben Stokes, Owen Morgan have a good series, then the Indian bowlers could go the journey as well. So it's there could be a lot of runs scored in this series. I predict if both sides turn up with the bat, then could be some big scores.
Okay, so all right. In terms of, do you want to do the world teams now?
Yeah, I think we can do that next time. I don't, just for the viewers, me and Norman were talking about, we did our current World Test 11 side, but we thought that we would do our all-time Test 11, and it'll be slightly different. So I think we should do it based on our lifetime. So Norman will obviously be able to pick from, his Tomos, his Tomos, Lilies, Bothams, that kind of thing. Whereas I obviously would have to stay probably more sort of 2000s, sort of late 90s, 2000s. So we can have different variations of our side, which I think will be quite a cool thing to do. And I'd like people in the chat to put their side in, who's their best Test side. Of course, no doubt Ray and some of the KO Rahul will just put the current India side in. That wouldn't surprise me if it's just 11 Indian cricketers. But yeah, I mean, do you want to do that first couple now, or do you want to maybe do it next episode, or
first couple of players?
Yeah, I think we should do it similar to before. I've got the board over there, so we could do opening bats and then go from there.
Well, I'm quite happy to do the opening batters now.
Okay, that's fine.
Because I've actually also looked at a few of the Lord's Cricket Ground. They bring famous players in to do their little talks, and I'm happy to look at the openers. One of the players that gets a mention almost by everybody, whether they're Australian, English, Pakistani, whatever, they all seem to talk very highly of Matthew Hayden as an opening batter in the world team. Now, I'm by no means saying he's not a good opening batter. He certainly was amazing. But I think it was always the shorter form where he was at his best. The longer form, he was certainly good too. He scored a 380 against Bangladesh, and that necessitated Brian Lara going back and scoring a 400, to be honest. Brian Lara didn't like the fact that he wasn't number one on that.
To be honest, I've got his stats in front of me. For Test cricket, what makes you say that he wasn't at his best in Test cricket? What would you say stats-wise makes you great in Test cricket? What makes you...
Okay, there were times he never won a match. Okay? He never batted a whole innings and won a match. Okay? Even Warner's done that. Okay? That was my concern about him. He did have some times when he got dismissed rather cheaply through a silly shot, although other times when he dominated. And he generally dominated on flat pitches, to be honest with you. And his 380 came against bloody Bangladesh, I'm pretty sure.
I think it was Zimbabwe.
Zimbabwe. It was Zimbabwe. But it was against a very ordinary side, and they batted far, far too long. They should have declared when he was in no more than about 150, 200, and he went on to 380. So I find that innings rather shallow. I'm sorry. It doesn't stack up to a Brian Lara innings the way he got his runs. I like the guy. I think he's a fantastic player, but I don't think he's the best opening batter of all time, in my opinion. Okay,
he'd probably be in my team. Bear in mind what I've grown up watching. You talk about batters in Test cricket. If you average over 40, you're probably a good player. If you average over 45, you're probably one of the best. Would that be a fair?
Yeah, it is. But
Matthew Hayden averaged 51 in Test cricket.
What do you expect out of an opening batsman? What do you expect him to do? Dominate and score big runs when they're on flat tracks against poor sides? Well, his 51 was helped greatly.
When you're talking about Matthew Hayden, as he played in probably the best Test side of all time, so they were beating everyone, and everyone was scoring runs, everyone saying wickets.
He scored big runs against some pretty ordinary sides. He scored big runs on flat tracks. He had a great partner in Justin Langer for the most part of it as well, who actually helped him greatly in making it easy for him. He was a great player, but okay.
I think you'd be, I don't know, someone who averaged 51 with 30 Test hundreds over 103 tests did it against most people.
No, but you're not getting the point.
Everyone.
If I'm going to pick a side,
I get your point completely. But the average 51 and 100 tests.
Yeah, but if you score 380 against Zimbabwe, your average is going to go through the roof. Let's be honest, okay? I mean, that game, I'll tell you very factually, they should not have allowed him to play about that long. It was way too long. Even the same with when what's his name, Gillespie got 200. That was way too long as well. Okay,
They probably won the test, didn't they? But I imagine they still won the test match fairly comfortably. So justified, isn't it?
See, Michael Clark's 330 odd, whatever it was, on the SCG is more of an impressive innings than those numbers than anyone else. Okay, the way even that Mark Taylor scored 300, that was in Pakistan, was a difficult wicket, even though it was rather flat. Okay, I believe an opening batsman's do it.
Sorry, I was going to say I have 3 candidates for my 2 opening batting slots. Matthew Hayden is one of them. Virender Sehwag is another one, and Alistair Cook is the third.
Well, I agree with you on Alistair Cook wholeheartedly. Okay, I think he should be, again, based on the massive runs. But the way he opened the batting, he batted with a lot of intention as an opening bat, is to make sure that they see the red ball off, or the white ball, whatever. Let's say red ball. His job was to get big scores over a progressive time and bat long into an innings. And I still think that Matthew Hayden didn't do that as frequently, unless it was against the poor side. I'm sorry. So I would argue Alistair Cook's one of them. And you're going to find this one.
You can go lifetime. You can tap into the 80s as well. You can go whoever you want. Yeah.
Or 70s and even 60s a little bit. I was born.
50s.
Not 50. I wasn't born in the 50s. I still think you've got some people like I'd even go Jeffrey Boycott.
That'd be popular.
Because Jeffrey, I think in terms of for starters, Matthew Hayden never faced any Australian bowlers. He didn't face Warne and McGrath, okay? Whereas some of the other players did. I would argue, I would go for the traditional openers, and I would say the way I saw Boycott survive and actually save matches, not necessarily win matches, but he saved matches a lot, and also actually won matches. I think they're my opening combination.
Yeah,
but I'd have Sehwag and Hayden any day if I wanted to score runs, and they're great players. But that's my suit.
Jasia Hardik Singh said, "What about Graham Smith?" Yeah, another one.
He's certainly up there too.
My 2 would be Cook and Hayden, 2 lefties. And there's so many.
So there's a mistake. There's a mistake right there. Okay, because you have to complement each other, and you shouldn't have 2 left-handers. Or 2 right-handers, for that matter, opening the batting for any side.
I think they complement themselves in other ways. I think they complement themselves in technique. I think they complement themselves in where their strengths were. Cook was much more of a leg side, back foot player. Hayden was a front foot bully, almost, big drives. One's very aggressive, one's more of an accumulator. So if you take the 2 left-handers out, I think they are the perfect complement to each other in terms of where bowlers would want to bowl. And, a lot of the greatest combinations of all time have been 2 right-handers or 2 left-handers. Cook, Hayden.
Okay, actually, Dreamer DD's. Sorry, I'm going to change Boycott now. Out of some sort of fairness to the 2 English players, I'm actually agreeing with Dreamer DD. I think Gavaskar is probably the one that should be given it. I would say Gavaskar performed at a level which was quite remarkable against a lot of great teams, great bowling attacks as well, including the West Indies, and performed particularly well. So I would argue that that would be a more appropriate opening partnership. Gavaskar and Cook. I agree with that.
Fine. So you've got. I will write these down and put them on my board. But we can do number 3 as well, and then do 4, 5, 6 next time if you want.
Number 3. Oh boy.
There's lots of off the top of my head. Dravid, Ponting. Even someone like Hashim Amla, he's not going to be in my side, Hashim Amla, but he has to make it. Callis ended up batting at 3. I'll have to have Callis in my side somewhere. I don't think he bats at 3 for me personally. Jesus, so many. It's between Dravid and Ponting, I think, for me, and I'm going to say Ricky Ponting.
Same here. I had Ponting at 3. He was a dead set gun specialist number 3 if there ever was one.
Yeah.
And he knew exactly how to take it to the opposition, when and how, and did it with great control. I'd say Ricky Ponting. Driver was steady as a rock, but I don't think he was quite. He never tore teams apart. He never came in at first drop and really ascended the game as first drop should.
Yeah.
I'd even go far back to Ian Chappell and say he'd be up there as well.
I
But
mean,
have
Ponting's test record is staggering, really. 168 test matches. Nearly 13,500 runs average, 52 with 41 test hundreds. I mean, that's just...
No, Ponting's certainly number 3.
What Dravid stats would be pretty good, I'd imagine.
They are good. He's a killer. Did he have, again, did he come in and as a first... Did he come in at none for 150 and then take the team apart? No.
Yeah, they're different. As I said, they're very different, aren't they? But, Dravid averaged 52, 36 test hundreds. So they're pretty much identical records in completely different ways, aren't they? One was a counter-attack, attacking. Dravid was your accumulator. I'd love to see how many... They basically scored the same number as runs. Both scored nearly 13,500 runs. A very identical. I'd love to see how many balls. I'd love to see how many balls Dravid faced in his Test career compared to Ponting.
Yeah, that'd be a lot.
Well, Dravid's strike rate was 42.
Jadeja Hardish has said Don Bradman. There's no doubt that I would be willing to drop. But if I were to go beyond, you said in my lifetime.
Yeah, who we've watched play, I think is probably
well,
easiest.
Don Bradman I can't include, but I would include him as the first drop player.
As would I, as you would have to. You'd have to.
Yeah. So Don Bradman's my first drop guys normally, but I would put Ponting in there ahead of Steve Smith, who's been mentioned. Steve Smith, no, not yet. So yeah, I'd have Gavaskar and
Cook. Let me note this
Cook
down.
and Ponting at first drop. Let's go to second drop. Come on.
Cook, Hunter. Number 4. Well, you've probably got 3 main candidates, I would say. There's thousands of good options, but you would probably say there's 3 choices, and that's probably Lara, Tendulkar, Kallis. I mean, you've got Viv. You could probably put Viv in.
I've got Viv in there already at number 4. I'm sorry. Okay. I truly think if I had to pick a side and I had to choose between Kallis, because he's all-round nature, that's the different story. Okay, let's put that to one side. But if I had about a number 4 that I would think would be the one to win me a test match, win me a test match, Viv Richards by a country mile. By a country mile, he's the man that would come in and tear them apart and win a match for me. You know what? Tendulkar did not do that. Tendulkar did not do that. He was not a match winner. Important part of the team, no doubt. A legend, no doubt. But he was not a match winner. And I'm afraid Viv Richards was probably the penultimate match winner.
Well, and same as Lara.
Yeah, Lara too, but I'm sorry, Richards is better than Lara.
Yeah, I have no doubt. I think I can probably balance my side out because I think I can probably get Kallis in at 6. So
yeah, Kallis is going to be in there somewhere. I still want Lara and Tendulkar in there somewhere as well. But number 4,
you've got a bigger problem now because you can't get Kallis, Lara, and Tendulkar if you have Viv.
Well, then I have to put Kallis out of the team then, potentially.
Well, the greatest all-round cricketer by miles ever.
Yeah, well, I would say Flintoff and both of them better than him.
Flintoff?
Well, okay, both of them. Why? Because again, both of them was a match winner with a bat and ball. Kallis was a great player, but he wasn't known. How many games did Kallis win on his own bat? He may have contributed heavily, but he may have been very heavily contributing. But anyway, I believe the best team in the world.
There's no way in a million years you can include, and I love the bloke. I think he's brilliant, but you can't include Flintoff in the same sentence as Jack.
Okay, all right, I'll take him out. I accept that. But I'm talking about match winners. My team is going to be full of match winners, and I believe that's what I would think. Okay, all right. Let's leave it at that. Okay.
Well, I haven't said who my number 4 is.
Okay.
I mean, I'd love to have someone like Kevin Peterson in there. I don't think he can. In terms of someone who through my early teenage years, 2005 Ashes, I was 13. But then the next probably 8-9 years was arguably the most talented batter in world cricket in all formats. Without a doubt, Kevin Peterson is as a match winner, could win a game in a session. I'm going to stick Brian Lara in at number 4. Brian Lara.
Yeah, well, I'm older than you, and Viv Richards. Oh God. Honestly, Chris, if you saw Viv Richards bat,
I have no doubt. I've heard. Yeah,
you wouldn't even. People, I've never seen a batsman go into bat and bowling and fielding teams fear that he's walking on the field. Actually, Brian Lara, yes, but the comment about Brian Lara is he gets to 30, 40, people go, "Oh my God, he's just going to accumulate the rest of the runs with great shots." But they didn't fear him, but they feared Viv Richards. You were actually in danger feeling anywhere near him. Anywhere.
I saw a comment from Music Harmony about what his side would be, and I'm going to call him out as being slightly biased as an Indian fan. He had Murali and Kumble in as his spinners and didn't have Warne. I'm sorry, you can't have Kumble over Warne. Like, no, you just can't.
Warne's ability to again win games. I mean, Kumble took lots of wickets. He took a lot of wickets and some big 9-wicket hauls, but in general, Warne.
I'd have Warne over Murali. I'd have Warne in my side over
Murali. Murali was again very good at home. He didn't necessarily. I think he did that well in Australia. Kumar Sangakkara was mentioned. Yeah, of course he's right up there. Certainly,
it's possible. I mean, where do you get AB de Villiers? Not going to get in Peterson.
Again, AB de Villiers is someone I would put in my ODI and T20 sides, but not my Test side.
Norman's going to want to get Steve Warren as captain, I'd imagine.
No, I don't want him to be captain.
But, I mean, there's going to be so many good quality players that, I mean, ultimately with this sort of side, we're going on who we like as a player, who our favourites are, really, isn't it? I mean,
it's not favourites. It's based on who wins matches. I mean, the difficult one for me is the keeping position. We'll talk about later between Gilchrist and Sangakkara. They're both, equally as.
It won't be much of a decision for me, only because Sangakkara scored most of his Test runs when he wasn't keeping. He didn't really like keeping.
Gilchrist would be the standout. He changed keeping, and even though
just from back in the day when you were like Alan and Knott, and they could keep us back from
Alan Knott. I mean, Rodney Marsh was my favourite because he used to keep against Elliot Thompson, and Marsh could actually bat too. He did some great performances, but Adam Gilchrist, even though I was much older, Adam Gilchrist, absolutely changed the platform altogether. He really took batting as a keeper to another level beyond anyone, and his keeping was also very good. He was always underrated with his keeping, but his keeping was fantastic. Shane Warne, even though they didn't get along, I mean, I don't know who couldn't get along with Adam Gilchrist. He's such a lovely bloke. Adam Gilchrist is the sort of guy who would talk to you in a lift before you would talk to him.
Yeah.
Right? But he and Warne didn't get on. Warne didn't get on. Okay. I would argue that we'll go with that 4. So my 4 is Cook and Gavaskar, then Ponting, and then Viv. But I could have changed that. I would have put, if I would have had the complete entire history of cricket, Bradman would have been ahead of Ponting. Okay, for sure.
Yeah, and I've gone Cook, Hayden, Ponting, Lara. I mean, that's a pretty decent top 4. That.
I don't know. Something. Anyway, Hayden's a magnificent batter, but I just don't think he's the best ever opener ever. That's too much to say. All right, we've got an hour and 23 minutes, Chris.
I think, it's been good.
That's pretty damn good, and people are still here. I know. But, okay, our prediction of the T20 match, India versus England. The first match will probably go to India, and then England will warm up to it, and we'll probably win the next 2, and then India might win the next one and make it 2-all, and we'll have a fantastic third match after it. That's my prediction. And the ODIs, I think, India's going to smash England. I think Kohli, that will be pretty scary in that format. That's my prediction. 2-1. All right. What's yours again? Who's going to win the first T20?
I think England will win it. I'll go against you. I think England will hit the ground running.
Okay. All right. All right, guys, we've gone an hour and 24 minutes. I'd love to talk for another 2 hours, but I think we've done our fair bit. It's getting close to midnight here in Australia. In fact, it is exactly midnight here in Australia. So we'll leave it at that. Again, thank you, Chris, for being on episode 10 of An Aussie A POM, talking all about India and beyond. It's been a fantastic show again. Thank you again. So Norman Kochnick here saying goodbye from Eyes on Cricket with Norman Kochnick. Please note on Thursday we'll have something tomorrow. In fact, I'm going to make a point of doing something every day at 10:30 p.m. Okay, my time, which is 5 p.m. your time. It'll be on every day. We're going to be like clockwork. But on Thursday we'll have one regarding the women. Pretty will be there with Aparna and the like. But yeah, so enjoy them. So bye, Chris. Bye, everyone. We'll talk soon again. This is Norman Kochnick from Eyes on Cricket with Norman Kochnick.